Hello, this is Nazma.
Hear you? Does everyone hear her?
I can hear her.
I can hear her as well.
Let me get something in my ear so that I can hear the same way. And we'll be live in about 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, modern torture in Trinidad and Tobago prison.
Hello, this is Nazma. You want to try me on WhatsApp?
I can hear her.
I can hear her as well.
Let me get something in my ear so that I can hear the same way. And we'll be live in about 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, modern torture in Trinidad and Tobago prison.
Hello, this is Nazma. You want to try me on WhatsApp?
Why are we hearing all that? I can hear her as well.
Let me get something in my ear so that I can hear the same way. And we'll be live in about 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, modern torture in Trinidad and Tobago prison.
Hello, this is Nazma. You want to try me on WhatsApp?
Why are we hearing all that? I can hear her as well.
Let me get something in my ear so that I can hear the same way. And we'll be live in about 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, modern torture in Trinidad and Tobago prison.
Hello, this is Nazma. You want to try me on WhatsApp?
Why are we hearing all that? I can hear her as well.
In my ear so that I can hear the same way. And we'll be live in about 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, modern torture in Trinidad and Tobago prison.
Hello, this is Nazma. You want to try me on WhatsApp?
Why are we hearing all that? I can hear her as well.
In my ear so that I can hear the same way. And we'll be live in about 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, modern torture in Trinidad and Tobago prison.
Hello, this is Nazma. You want to try me on WhatsApp?
Why are we hearing all that? I can hear her as well.
In my ear so that I can hear the same way. And we'll be live in about 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, modern torture in Trinidad. All right, ladies and gentlemen, are we all here? Gentlemen, are we all here? There we go. It's I, Kaya. You are muted. Laz is now muted. Gentlemen, are we all here? There we go. It's I, Kaya. You are muted.
Oh my God.
All of these forces.
This is giving.
I apologize, Empress Baz.
There we go. It's I, Kaya. You are muted.
Oh my God.
All of these forces.
This is giving.
I apologize, Empress Baz.
There we go. It's I, Kaya. You are muted.
Oh my God.
Everyone is hearing correctly. No and no feedback.
Nope.
We just have some beautiful kids enjoying their Saturday afternoon. As
Yeah.
we begin to discuss topic of today.
Everyone is doing correctly. Oh, and no feedback. Nope. Just have some beautiful kids enjoying their Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
We begin to discuss. Everyone is doing correctly. Oh, and no feedback. Nope. Just have some beautiful kids enjoying their Saturday afternoon.
Oh, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We begin to discuss.
And I'm trying to meet you all one by one. Miss Ikaya, I believe it is over on yours. You only have one window open. Is that correct?
Saturday afternoon.
As I mute yours, all of the echo mutes. Cool. Let me see. Miss Baz, welcome to Sunsplash the Mix. Today, our topic, and specifically with yours, just a professor, John Jay College of Criminal Justice, founder of the Prison to College Pipeline, executive director of the Incarceration Nations Network. You are busy, even on this Saturday afternoon. Let's start there. We understand COVID is going on. We understand that there are issues in our society. You are still working to help many different people who were accused and convicted and now want to reform. Is this your life work now?
Yeah, it's been, first of all, hi. It's good to be with you. It's good to be in the company of such good peoples. And apologies for the noise in my background. I am out and about right now on this Saturday afternoon. But yes, I've been working in prisons and jails for almost 2 decades, both in the U.S. and globally. And, you know, in the context of this conversation, inside Trinidad and Tobago as well. And I think the thing to start the conversation with, or the point to make as we start the conversation, is that when we talk about reform, we're not only talking about reform of individuals, we're talking about reforms of systems and structures that create and criminalize individuals and fill our jail cells. So, you know, people often talk about rehabilitation. They need to recognize that it's society that usually needs more rehabilitation than the people that we have locked up. And the society that creates inequality, lack of opportunity, you know, racial inequity, and so on and so forth all over the world.
And sometimes someone's going to say, crime is crime. If individuals break the law, they're arrested, they have a trial, maybe they plead, they're found guilty, they're sentenced. Crime, law, and prison. Isn't that something as simple that we don't really need to change that?
Well, we need to recognize, I mean, there's many things here. We need to recognize that prisons overall are legacies of slavery and colonialism. And the population inside them is a product of those two things historically, and it continues to this day. So we have, we as a world, as a global community, have chosen to criminalize certain others, whether it's poor people, whether it's, of course, Blacks and Latinos in the U.S., whether it's Maori people in New Zealand, through the legacies of slavery and or colonialism. We have chosen to criminalize these people and created laws to do so, and then packed our prison cells with them. So it's so critical to recognize that that's who's packing our jails and prisons overwhelmingly. And so that means a lot of petty offenses. It means drug offenses. It's overwhelmingly, prisons are not in so many parts of the world filled with the people who are doing the great damage to societies. And so we have to start from the premise that we need to build equity. We need to build racial and socioeconomic equality. And then we can kind of move it from there. And our legal systems in the world have been created around this reality of determining how we can mass criminalize people and again, others. And so just because it's a law does not make it just.
Correct.
I love it. I love it. Miss Isis, you are here. You see things as I do from a younger perspective, and we respect that. Are we seeing the same things when social injustice is going on? Are there things that maybe adults are not really understanding? Our youth, we're out there marching just like they were. We're being very socially conscious.
Prince?
Yes.
Yes, I'm busy in here trying to message in the chat saying that it's distorted for me. I can't get to that. Can you please state your question to me again? Thank
Not
you.
a problem. Not a problem.
Yes,
We do see issues with crime and punishment, and then now reform. As a younger person, maybe we haven't seen as much of the reform. Is there things that we are expecting our elders to kind of guide us through? Like, yo, we must bring people back into the communities. We must stop doing crime.
I have to say that I co-sign everything that Empress Baz just mentioned. I don't really I am trying to understand your question, Jack Prince.
No problem.
If what you're asking me.
Mhm.
If I think that the adults should be leading us, yes, I do. But I also think that a lot of adults are stuck in a certain mind frame of dealing with things, and they're tired of trying and no changes. So I think that we, the youths, the upcoming generation, we have a heavy, we have a burden, we have a weight to carry, we have a lot of changes to make, a lot of things that we have to do for ourselves and not just wait on the adults. You know what I mean? Because not every adult is educating themselves or trying to make a change. Some of them have gotten beaten up over the years for so many different things, stemming from slavery time, that they have just been, now they're just like comfortable where they are and just living every day as it comes and not really trying to fight, for something else. You get what I'm saying? They're content, they're comfortable. But then we have people like Empress Nazma and Empress Baz that is actually taking a stand, and myself who is following up.
I like it.
I hope I answer your question.
Definitely, because we can be critical. We are younger. We're seeing it from a different scope as how the world is running, but we didn't understand about the system, and we're educating ourselves, and our communities are becoming responsible with us, the young people. But sometimes young people don't have a plan.
No,
we don't know how to adjust.
May I say something, Ja Prince?
Yes.
It never. I mean, I know about. I have some type of knowledge about jail and prison and these type of things. You watch movies, you have an idea. I have a cousin who's incarcerated right now. I've got a little knowledge just from him being in there. But until Empress Nazma, was actually incarcerated, I've never thought about even applying myself in that area. And then having listened to some of Empress Baz interviews and such, I'm just like, wow, my brain was never there. You know what I mean? To even move a muscle to do something, or to create something, a better, to be a voice for ones that are incarcerated and actually, it's, have no voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So not knowledgeable in this area. It's like super knowledgeable, what I should say. So I'm here and I'm learning, and yeah.
And if I could just jump in to say, I think that what you said, first of all, it's really refreshing to hear you just honestly say that. I never thought about this before, because I hear that all the time from so many people who are educated and smart and conscious and, thoughtful. But we have been made to not think about these issues until they suddenly become relevant to us. unless it impacts your life. It's just, you just take for granted. And I think there are a few important, really basic things that we need to understand. One is the point that I just made about the connection of prisons to colonialism and slavery and racial and socioeconomic oppression. But it's also critical to start this conversation from understanding that prisons do not make us safer. And I say that very generally speaking. All over the world, it has been shown that prisons do not build safer communities. I mean, we're talking about Trinidad and Tobago today, and think about it. Crime has been steadily rising. The incarceration rate has been steadily rising. Trinidad and Tobago is one of the, is in the somewhere around 40 in the incarceration rates in the world, which is fairly high. It has twice the incarceration rate of Jamaica.
Yeah.
I think we might have lost her there for 1 second.
Hello, are you there?
Yeah, we're ready.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just getting a call. I think that's from somebody listening. but
We'll take our time. There we go. Yes, she is with us live. Dr. Baz, the founder of Prison to College Pipeline, also the executive director of Incarceration Nations Network. Let me make sure Miss Naz is still with us. Can she hear us? And then Miss Naz.
Hi.
There she is. Welcome to the show.
Blessed.
We fight through all technical difficulties. We have no problems. We shall make this work.
Yes.
We shall.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the police and the prison, they need to do their job. They follow through on the goals and the objectives set by their bosses. You now, as you're striving to bring knowledge to other people, you're going to receive some resistance from these authorities. It's not surprising, but are you prepared for a long-term fight for just being an educator and an activist?
Yes, because it's been 500 years since Columbus first rocked up in Trinidad and changed the entire universe of these islands. And our history of slavery and colonialism is still with us. The prisons were built in those times by colonial masters to hold slaves and indentured. And nothing has changed in the outlook, in the approach, in the goals and outcomes of the authorities. Now that we have native Trinidadians and Tobagonians running the country, I believe the approach and the objective should be to rehabilitate, to restore justice, to bring our people back from the prisons better than how they went in.
True.
What is happening now is a demoralization, a dehumanization, a sense of torture, real torture in a very hot climate, in a concrete box, very little ventilation. This is perfect for a breeding ground for all kinds of diseases. These are conditions that Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch and all the international bodies would be appalled to see, especially in the time of COVID. We are worried about COVID, right? But the kinds of diseases that are being spread when you have 7 grown, sweaty, hot men inside one cell using a pail bucket, a pigtail bucket to defecate and urinate in. That is just a disaster waiting to happen. And it is happening and being covered up. A lot of people are dying from medical conditions because of the policies of the prisons. Not the prison officers. I mean, of course, you would have good and bad prison officers who have the authority and the power to execute whatever mood they're in on that given day.
Right.
So I am in for a very long fight, and on Friday I will begin protesting outside the prisons, beginning with the one where I was held, the only women's prison. The women are treated pretty much like men, except that there aren't as many of them in being held. But the backstories of these women an indictment of our social systems as well. I mean, we have to look at the fact that the way that people who are not even incarcerated or accused of crimes are treated in Trinidad, the working class, the poor, they are criminalized for being poor.
Mm-hmm.
So what we are looking at here is the continued persecution of the poor by colonial laws. And how this is manifested is in great mental illness, great stress in the prisons. There are no attempts to grasp the fact that the people you are dealing with now are not subjects of the crown. They are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and in many instances in our detention centers, I would like to see a working group to go into these detention centers, these incarceration centers, and tell me if what is being done to these people is not inhumane. And beyond, it is violations of all kinds of OSHA laws, safety and security. What if there's an earthquake while we are this is what was going through my mind when I was held in a cell 10 feet by 10 feet. What if the big earthquake that Trinidad is predicted to have hits while I am inside these behind these bars that have to be manually opened? And I do believe in the men's prisons, the cells are locked at night and the keys are sent down to the front. So if there's an emergency, as what happened with an inmate who died after having a seizure, you have to go and get the keys from the front desk to open the cells at night. So I am saying that this cannot go on. We are going to continue to get suicides and all sorts of slow death by attrition, by neglect, by torture. And we need to see something happen immediately, because we have an outbreak in the prison in Tobago right now. And these prison officers are coming out into the population and then going back into the prison. So obviously the urgency of COVID requires a whole new rethink immediately.
Empress Nazma, you sure it was...
I'm just pausing for breath there. Are you still there?
Empress Nazma?
Yes.
Ja Prince?
Yes, Miss Ikaya.
Yeah, I was wondering, is Empress Nazma sure it was 10 by 10? Because I spoke to an inmate, and I think 10 by 10 is the size of the ones in Port of Spain. I think where she was held, I think it was 7 by 8 or so. I don't think it was 10 by 10. I think it was smaller. Yeah.
It's valuable to know the numbers we're talking about. The Port of Spain prison was actually built for 250 people, again, during the colonial era, as Empress Nazma mentioned, and it now holds almost 700 people. Wow. So think about that level of overcrowding. The Remand prison was built for 650 and has at least twice that in it. So it's enormously overcrowded. And none of this is unique to Trinidad and Tobago. I think it's really important to point that out too. That these kinds of conditions, this level of overcrowding, this level of, essentially modern day torture is happening all over the world. And it's, again, nowhere is it making our communities, our global communities safer. It's doing quite the opposite. What you do is you increase trauma and you increase harm, and that then send people out into the world further damaged than they already were by an inequitable system, and then create further harm. So we are actually, prisons not only do not make us safer, they make us less safe by reproducing harm.
There is a mindset that prison is to deter people from committing crime.
The science does not back that up. We know this all over the world. The death penalty, harsher punishments do not work as deterrent. In fact, they just don't jive with the thinking process of people who are committing crimes. So the deterrence argument has already been shown to be false. We have to realize that, and I think it's also important to realize that prisons are part of the larger colonial structure. The whole legal system of the post-colonial world is still stuck in the colonial era. The laws on the books, the way that the courts are structured, everything down to the wigs. Why are people wearing wigs in Trinidad, in the courts in Trinidad, the judges, right? That's just straight out of, the UK. It's colonial and it doesn't fit. And the whole system, these are, especially, I always say this, especially in the Caribbean, a part of the world where we're talking about small populations and communities who know each other. We know who's committing the crimes. We know where the harm is coming from. So the thing to do is to engage in restorative practices, not to practice these kinds of, prison is this impersonal, colonial, way of othering someone. And that is not what we need.
Understood. Understood. If someone says that we are fighting the system, if someone says we need to break the system and start all over again, or abolish the system completely, where do you fit in that?
I think somebody's mic is not muted, so if that could be fixed, it would be great.
One second.
So, I can speak for myself. I am a prison abolitionist, which means that I am working toward building a world in which prisons are no longer necessary. And that doesn't mean
I think we just lost her.
classes, etc., creating true access to opportunity for all, looking at undermining the structural racisms and classisms that are funneling certain groups of people into prisons all over. And it also means investing in restorative justice programs. There is, as far as I know, and actually I know this from very recently trying to collaborate with someone who is interested in restorative justice in Trinidad, there is one youth court that is restorative, sort of grounded in restorative justice practices, but it is, as I understand it, not very active. I hope I'm mistaken, but it can't. It's there. The structure is there, and it needs to be developed, and it needs to be developed for adults also. Again, these are communities. People know who's causing the harm and what's happening. So it's time to start addressing harms by restorative practices and looking at what we're locking people up for. I know that, we haven't gotten into the discussion of herb yet, but a third of people in Trinidad and Tobago's prisons are in for narcotics offenses. 1/3, that's a lot of people. Also, more than 60%, about 63%, have not even been convicted of anything.
They're just in there, right?
They're waiting trial.
Yeah.
Or they can't find a bond. Ises, can you speak to that? The things that she was just mentioning, that there are people who are still awaiting trial, that lawyers didn't get the deposit, they couldn't bond out. There's just systematic issues that obviously have been happening, especially in Trinidad.
Empress Baz, she mentioned that we didn't touch base on, we didn't get to cannabis yet. But this is something that I have been medsing, and I would like to know too, like, how could someone that's charged for possession of marijuana, cannabis, be placed in a population in a cell where with actual murderers, and pedophiles? How is that,
know? And I believe that would breach the argument where someone would say, well, that means we need more prisons, we need more jails.
No, I think we need more rehabilitation. We need more people to be healed, and we need more infrastructure for them to go to heal. Get me?
Mm-hmm.
So, where is Empress Nazma?
Empress Nazma, you there? You hear us?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
For the brief seconds, let's talk about Trinidad the same way. Someone would say they don't believe in the double standard in the treatment of some people on the island, people of color, some indigenous people. They may not have seen all of Trinidad. They go beach, they go parties, but they haven't seen injustice. How can you explain that?
Well, the thing is, once you go inside, no human being can stay locked up in a cell for 24 hours a day, which is what happens for 48 hours on the weekend. And during the week, I was held 23 hours in this cell, and that is just that is going to send any human being insane. And what tends to happen is high profile or wealthy clients who happen to end up in the prison, they get to stay in the infirmary, or they're allowed to walk up and down, but the actual conditions are in a hot climate like Trinidad. It is designed, it is going to send anybody insane, and that is clearly that must breach all sorts of international laws in terms. And not only that, the fact is this is a cost to the taxpayer. You know, you have to provide meals, and even though some people may think life is great in prison, the reason that a lot of people end up back in prison is because of the stigmatization and what happens to you in prison. You cannot function outside of prison. When they finally let you out, it takes a long time, and the trauma to people who have already been in a position, and I see a lot of working class people. If the judges were honest, the vast majority of people who come before them are poor, working class, already marginalized people in the society. So they end up infringing on the law, either to make a living or for whatever reason. The influences around them were not positive to begin with. So the odds are set against people. If you listen to the backstories, which I had a lot, I had 14 days to listen to women from mostly working class, poor backgrounds. And what has happened with the lockdown, with the COVID, with the collapse of the economy, is that everybody is feeling the financial crisis in different ways. And we have to come out. We will come out eventually, but we have children, and they have been traumatized by the experience. Our families are traumatized. That comes with a cost. That comes with a cost to the taxpayer. Anyhow you take it, because it's going to end up in mental health services, in further breakdown of the families. When our children are, when we are not around, the working class, their children become victims. They're easy targets for gangs, for drug blocks, for all sorts of crimes, because they're vulnerable. This is how the culture, the underground culture of what you people, the establishment might call the misfits. But the misfits are not fitting in because of what is happening in the society. This disenfranchisement, this idea that all human beings do not need food, clothing, and shelter. That social network does not function normally. So obviously a lot of people have fallen through the cracks and they end up in prison. That comes with a cost. Somebody has to pay, and it's the taxpayer has to pay for the meals, the toiletries, the prison officers' salaries, the transport to and from prison. And when you look at it, it's all the already wealthy people in the society are benefiting from the prisons, from the business of keeping prisons filled. So I don't know if we can, in the Caribbean, can afford to be an incarceration nation. We just don't have the money anymore. Trinidad and Tobago is one of the wealthiest in the region, and we are not. We are now in deficit budgets, and we're now in the same position as many of the other Caribbean islands. So this is unsustainable financially, economically. We will just keep borrowing from the World Bank to keep running our prisons.
Empress Nazma,
I would think in the long run, it makes more sense to try to rehabilitate and to get people to fit back into their communities and become productive citizens. In prison in Trinidad and Tobago, you sit down and you do nothing. They pay you 10 cents a day. 10 cents. That is from like 100 years ago. So you're not any use to your family inside or outside. You're not producing. These are healthy people, strong, healthy people in the prison until they get sick or something happens or they contract something from being in a cell with 8, 9 other people. So we are creating our own problems.
Yes.
If the healthcare network, if the health system cannot function and is under stress from COVID, what happens when our prisoners end up in the mental health institutions, or they have cancer, or they have some stress-related illness brought on by being in the conditions that they're in?
And like you say, we cannot maintain that, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, not in Jamaica, but specifically colonized islands and territories. We were not ready or prepared to move out of this system or break the system. Miss Ikaya Ises, you might have a comment or a statement for Miss Nazma.
Actually, Empress Nazma was actually answering before, my thoughts. But I have a question for Empress Baz. Is she still on?
She has departed. She will probably return.
Okay, so I'll ask Empress Nazma. And yeah, Ja Prince. So we, we know where we are. We know what the issue is. We know what's happening. We are fully aware. And so what do we do from here? Like, where do we go? How do we start making a change, and how do we engage the general public to assist us in carrying out this? Because a lot of people want justice, I'm sure. So how do we, like, what's my concern? Like, what's the first step in moving forward to improve this situation? Because I can tell you for myself, like, I have visited the Golden Grove prison in Trinidad, and I've done nothing to be in there. But when I go there to visit my cousin, I am treated like I've done something wrong. So even the whole system is broken, and the way people even treat other people, you know what I mean? That's visiting. It's just very distasteful. You know what I mean? And I would like change for sure. And I am asking, because I like to act. So I'm asking, what do we do next? Like, Empress Nazma, you're a super advocate, activist, a super woman. Where do we go from here? What do we do?
And what do we do next? What is the active thing that we do next to help move forward? Activism, action.
Well, we call on the government of Trinidad and Tobago and all the Caribbean islands to move swiftly to look at restorative justice. What that would require is a change in the way that we approach the criminal justice system. It means a revamp of the laws, in particular the cannabis laws that have reaped so many thousands of young Black and colored men across the United States, the Caribbean, Europe. We have to look at the laws that continue to criminalize our people for our culture. We have to face up to the fact that who are we? What do we deserve? And you can't listen to outsiders and not listen to your own people about what is right for us. And I want some of these lawmakers and these politicians to spend 48 hours inside the cells of our prisons, where some of them actually belong, I would dare posit, and tell me, what do they think is the end result of putting people in those cells? Because eventually, if they come out, if they do finally get a trial, like Gareth Wiseman, who has been in remand in Port of Spain jail for the last 17 years, right? How much money have we spent to keep a man in jail waiting for a trial to convict him for 17 years? Can Trinidad and Tobago afford that? Melissa Thomas is in the women's prison for 8 years now. She has 8 children. Look at the damage we are doing to those 8 children by keeping her in prison for 8 years waiting for a trial. So these are real cases, real people being affected. And we need to look at them case by case, person by person, and see if what we are doing is fair in the name of Trinidad and Tobago. That is not in my name. That cannot be done in my name.
And as an advocate, we are asking our community to do so. How do they reach out to you? How do they contact you?
Okay, I'm on Facebook, Nazma Muller. I also have an NGO called the Caribbean Collective for Justice, because I see our problems as Caribbean, regional in scope, because we all have a similar history and background and people and culture, which we must defend and empower from the lowest to the highest. What has happened is our society has always been top down. So now the people have to activate. If you have a relative or a friend in prison, you know what I'm talking about. You know that right now they cannot get food, clothing, any kind of thing except money to spend money in a canteen that is overpriced. Everything is twice the price. So the prison is making money off of the prisoners and their families who are usually struggling as it is. So please contact me if you want to be part of this movement to bring real justice to the people of the Caribbean. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I will be speaking out and I will be campaigning every Friday outside the prisons of Trinidad and Tobago until we see some change.
And we're going to say it's not male only, not female only. You're advocating for all generations, young and old.
Yes, because we have youth detention centers too. And what happens is children who have been placed in orphanages or youth detention centers for their behavior, they graduate to the big prisons, right? Because there's nobody along the way, no mentor, no one from the state who says, I care about where you're going with your life. No, they don't care. They only wait until lock you up.
Yeah, more money.
More money, more problems.
Yes, we are not our bodies. The bodies of brown and black people are not there for commodification and commercialization and monetization anymore.
Problems in our society. We shall address them one by one. We only have you for a couple of minutes at this section. We will bring you back. We will reconnect, and we must talk about the medicinal uses of marijuana.
Thank you. The world needs to wake up and stand up for that as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, the modern torture in Trinidad and Tobago prisons. Ms. Muller has been on the line with us. Ms. Dreisinger was on the line. Let me talk one more time with Ms. Kaya Ises. You will be joined.
Yeah, Prince, blessed love. I just want to see it, to Empress Nazma for whatever it's worth. I am sorry that you were put in there in that kennel. You know what I mean? And you're not a criminal, and you didn't deserve to be in there.
Right.
And we are happy that you're out and you're free. And I hope that mentally you're healing. Because I communicate with certain inmates as well. So I have a little idea of what it is like inside of there. And I'm happy that you're out and you're a strong warrior.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is just our Truversation number one. Please join us one more time. Justice is a universal thing that we are fighting for. Justice.